When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Hello there, everybody out there in internet land. How are you? I hope you're fine. Episode 51, if you're listening to it live, is 18th of June 2014. And if you're listening at any other time, why didn't you listen? Let me know where you are and I will come and do it live for you wherever you are. I'm a bit on edge today, I have to be honest, because I have got a man on who's listening to me at the moment, and he's probably got a notebook and he's making notes about my performance, because he has inspired me in many ways to get behind the mic. And he's got one of those voices that when you hear him start talking, you think, yes, he was born for this. And he is a man who's really getting out there and making a difference to the world. And if you are a podcaster or just a consumer of online content, then you will have heard this man's work without knowing the name most probably. He has loose lips that were born to communicate and golden tones made for inspirational comment. I couldn't say that better. And that is why he is the voice that introduces so many of the shows out there at the moment. But that's not all he does well, as it seems to me that he was born to be an entrepreneur and inspirational force to many, as well as, well, you're going to find out during the show. So let's listen to the wisdom and experience of a man who's been through the corporate route and is now living firmly on his own terms. He's a husband, a father, grower of an amazing beard, which I will have to discuss, and the co-host of Love Your Leap with the legend on the mic, that is John Lee Dumas. So now is the time to start joining up dots with the one and only golden voiceover man himself, Mr. Tim Paige. How are you today, Tim?
Well, I'm doing real good, David. I'm doing real good.
Do you know, I should have that as my wake-up call every morning.
Oh yeah, you said such flattering things. I had to come on and do something weird. I don't know.
Well, to say it's talking about weird. Just before we started recording, I was listening to Love Your Leap, and you went a bit mad on it. If no one's listened to Love Your Leap, and I'm going to talk about it later on, because it is actually one of my favourite shows, and it's had a lot to do with me getting to this point now. But I was listening to episode 28, I think it was, How to Control the World with Your Mind. And you and the aforementioned Mr. Lee Dumas were doing your weirdest laughs. And what? Oh, you can do it better than me. You are prime Scooby-Doo character. You are.
That's right.
Do you feel when you're on the mic, like I do, that actually no one's ever going to listen to it?
No. I think if I thought that, I would do some things that nobody would ever want me to do. I'm an interesting kind of person, and I have very interesting quirks, and so I have to keep them back sometimes. These interesting quirks.
What's an interesting quirk? You're lucky because no one listens to this show. It's just you and me, Tim.
I don't think so, David. I don't think so. I don't know. I'm a little wild, and I like to get really, really loud, and I'm passionate, and sometimes I'm passionate about things that nobody gives a crap about. And so, I used to have this show with my best friend, which we decided to stop for numerous reasons, but we talked about movies, and because we're both big movie nerds, and yeah, it was so freeform that things ended up getting said and getting told that you're kind of like, I don't know if I should say that to the public. And there it was.
There is that fine line, isn't there? Because I am a man who basically opens his mouth and whatever comes out, comes out. And yeah. I'm very aware. As I say, I try to make it as conversational as possible, but I'm very aware that ultimately you don't know who's listening to it. And it could be a family in a car driving along somewhere, and suddenly some weird content gets issued and the little kids are going, "Mummy, what are they talking about there?"
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I have a 6-month-old boy. Well, right now he's probably almost 8 months, but yeah, he's I'm a musician as well, and I wrote a cover of couple of older rap songs, and the content of those rap songs I wouldn't really want my son hearing for quite a long time. And so I had to change a lot of the words that a couple of the words that started with F, I changed them to hug because it sounds similar to the word that starts with F, and ended up making the song. It sounds really goofy now. It kind of sounds like a couple of siblings that are like having a World Wrestling Federation match or something, and then they decide to hug and make up. I don't know. It's kind of weird.
So getting on to your voice, as I say in the introduction, you have got a voice which you are using to maximum effect at the moment. Is it your natural voice, or have you trained it over a period of time? Because I've had a couple of conversations with people who are on the mic. First one was Cynthia Sanchez, who was episode 14, and then Chris Cerrone. And we were all saying how you actually have to, once you're on the mic, almost be like a human graphic equalizer and raise certain parts of your character up and lower other bits, because being a normal voice just wouldn't work on the mic. But are you close to what you are normally when you're in the kitchen making a cup of tea? Are you kind of podcast voice man?
It's funny, I am now. And the reason that I kind of developed the voice that I have now wasn't actually because of podcasts. It was probably 11 years ago. There was a guy named Chet Holmes, the late great Chet Holmes. Are you familiar with him?
No, I'm not.
I should never ask people, are you familiar with him? Because then it's an awkward answer, No, so this isn't awkward, but Chet Holmes is a really famous sales kind of coach and motivator. And I was hired to work for Chet Holmes as one of his salesmen. So you can imagine the daunting task that is. But he did a whole lot of studies about what got people to feel comfortable and feel open enough to buy. And one of the things that he found was that a lower intonation is actually more comforting and gets people to buy, whether it's B2B or B2C. And so, I at the time kind of always talked like this. It was kind of just a natural kind of, I would speak really highly. Now it's really hard to talk like that, but that's how I normally talked. And it's really off-putting in sales, and probably with getting girls and stuff like that too. I have no idea. But so I guess I started to develop that voice to kind of appease Chet Holmes, and it just happens to work with podcasting for whatever reason. But I appreciate all the compliments. I do hear a lot that I've got a great voice for it, and to me, it still just kind of sounds like my voice. But it's great to hear that. Because
I get told I've got a great face for radio, which
I've been told that too.
Yeah, which isn't quite as positive. But you, as I was saying, you are an introduction man. That's one of the things. You are a creator, or you work for a company called Lead Pages, which I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure what that is all about, so I'm going to sort of touch on that. But you are a man who made a leap of faith. And if you go back to your corporate ladder, how far up the corporate ladder did you get before you started to have those urges that there must be something more to life than you were getting at that time?
Yeah, I think in most cases I climbed really far up the ladder and then decided to jump off and climb up a different ladder. I managed a 200 and I think it was 86 person call center for AT&T, who was then Singular Wireless. And that was a lot of fun. I was really young when I did that. I think I was 21, and I was really enjoying that. But I was in the band and I was trying to make that whole career work. And so I left that and, basically worked for a lot of different places, did some multi-level marketing, did, a whole bunch of stuff. But I think the one that you're probably referring to is the vacuum sales business.
That's the one. It sounded like it sucked, but maybe it didn't.
Yeah, at first it didn't suck. At first it was like, my first paycheck was like $900 for a week, which I was blown away by at the time. I mean, that was the most money I'd ever made in a week. And then the next week was like $1,800. And then the following week was like $2,400. And I didn't know what to do with myself. I was making so much money and having so much fun with this new job, but it came to a point, and I don't know if I'm prematurely telling the story here, but it got to a point where I started realizing that the only thing that I put a priority on was this job and this paycheck, because I was working 16-hour days or 18-hour days, 6 days a week or 7 days a week. And at the time I was engaged to my now wife, and we had a future planned. I mean, we want 5 kids, David. 5 kids.
I've got 5 kids.
Oh, that is awesome.
And
That
a
is
grandson.
awesome. Wow, I love that. Yeah, so we just want that big I mean, I'm from a big family. I've got a bajillion cousins, and my dad's got, I think, 10 brothers and sisters. My mom's got 11. So the big family thing was what I was all about. But how am I going to do that if I'm working 16-hour days, 6 or 7 days a week? And I got to a point, not only with the time, but I realized that my wife, who, you know, I didn't have a kid yet, so my wife was my number one single most important priority, the person and the thing that was the most important to me in my entire life. I was coming home from work sometimes 10, 11 at night after being gone since 7 or 8 in the morning. And she'd be home, you know, on the couch. She had, you know, done her job or done whatever she was doing for the day. And I'd sit down with her, and she would tell me her stories from her day and, you know, all the things that had been happening. And I just wasn't there. I mean, I was hearing her, but I wasn't listening. And I wanted to focus, but I was so exhausted and so miserable from doing something that I wasn't passionate about, and something that, you know, I kind of questioned if it really provided any value at all to the world. And I realized that I just was becoming a different human being. And I've spent years and years and years and years trying to become as good of a person as I can, and, you know, to try to focus my efforts on others instead of myself. And that had really had paid off up until that point. And I started to change and kind of morph into this weird, you know, almost shell of a person. And it wasn't that I loved money more than anything. It was just that I was kind of stuck in that cycle and couldn't get off of it, you know?
What made you change? Because I've been there. What you're talking about now, I have been there big time. And I couldn't get out of it. And it wasn't that I'm a lover, because I'm not. I like to pay the bills, and I like to, you know, have no debts and all that kind of stuff. But actually, I'm very simple, and I'm very sort of minimal in my requirements. But when I was in the corporate land, working my way up the ladder, it wasn't so much the money. It wasn't so much the prestige. It was actually, I think, what I believed other people expected of me. And I was doing it for my parents to be proud, my kids to be proud, my wife to be proud. And I used to come home, and I was doing a job, and I used to have to get there at 4 in the morning. I'd leave work at home 4 in the morning to be there at 6. And we had to be there ready for London to start open, and it was like a stockbroking kind of place. And then I would follow suit until about 12 o'clock till New York started. And then it went to Chicago, then San Diego, and then I could leave home. And I was getting home about 11:30 at night, falling into bed, eat a bag of chips as I was walking home, and my life was falling to pieces. I was looking terrible. I was getting sort of psoriasis all over my face just through the pressure and the stress, but I still couldn't say goodbye to it. And it wasn't until they made me redundant I actually walked out, and it was such a relief that I could see maybe there was a better path. But you sound like you were making that decision internally. It wasn't that it was being forced on you. So why were you different? It's a long question, that, but why were you different at that point than other people who probably were going, show me the money, and to hell with the consequences?
Yeah, I don't know that I was that much different than anybody. I mean, for me, when I was there was an element of kind of wanting to impress other people. If I'm really, really personally, you know, kind of digging in, and I don't think I've ever talked about this before, but I think that there's a big part of me that loves being the best at whatever it is. Like, I love being somebody's best friend. I love being the most important person in somebody's life. I love being the best at a business. And I love to work. I love business. Business just fills me up. So even working for somebody else or my own business, it doesn't matter. Business fills me up. I get really excited. And the thing was, at the vacuum sales company, I was the best. And it's not kind of an arrogant statement. I mean, I really truly was the best. I outsold everybody. I was the first person in the company to ever open an office within the main headquarters office. And I was really successful, and that was part of it. Was I was loving the fact that I was the best, and that, when it came down to things, there were kind of the owners, and then there was me, and that was probably a big part of it. But what had changed for me, I think, I can tie it down to one particular moment that said to me, it's time to go. I mean, there were moments leading up to this. Like, for example, I was watching TV one day, and I was thinking about the fact that, I had to be doing what I was doing in order to keep making that kind of money. I had to work these long days to do it. And so one day I was watching a TV show, and I think they were talking about investing. They said the words passive income. And I was like, what in the world is passive income? That doesn't exist. And so I Googled it, like all, good TV watchers do. And I Googled passive income, and Pat Flynn's site came up, as most people would expect, smartpassiveincome.com. And I read through the site, and I was like, this is insane. People are doing this. People are making, I think he was making like 30 grand a month or something at the time. And people are making all this money online, and they set up these websites, and they can go on vacation for a month and make all this money. Like, this is crazy. Like, I should learn to do this. And, I found at that point, Entrepreneur on Fire wasn't a show. So I spoke to, I met a bunch of friends that were doing things, and, got introduced to a bunch of people, and started connecting there. And that was kind of the beginning to me leaving. I mean, there was that dissatisfaction, that unhappiness, that kind of thing that was missing for a long time. But that was the first kind of catalyst, I guess. And then the big thing, the thing that said, Tim, you're leaving, like you're going to find something else, you're going to make something else work, was I was doing a podcast interview. I had started my first podcast, which was called The Awesome Podcast. And if that couldn't be any more vague. And I was interviewing a lady by the name of Paula Pant. She has a website called affordanything.com, and it's a great website. And I was interviewing her, and we were just coming to an end. And so I was, I was saying, thanks so much, and it was great to talk to you, and, blah, 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 blah. And my wife hears this through the door and comes in, and I take my headphones off and turn around to see why she had come, busting in. And she's got tears streaming down her face. And I'm like, oh God, what happened? What could this possibly be? And she just kind of walks up to me and stands in front of me with red face and tears streaming down her face. And she reaches up, and she's got something in her hand, and she kind of like waves it at me, like, here, take this. And I take it, and I look at it, and it's a pregnancy test, and it says that she's pregnant. And we had been trying for 4 months, which is not obviously a long time. But, basically since we got married, we were trying. And I was like, I was so ecstatic, of course I hugged her, and we freaked out and all of that. And I was just like, man, I'm going to have this kid. And I know how involved with my life that my family has been. My dad and my mom are great. And I know the statistics on having your parents in your life, and your father is one of those statistics that I've heard a lot of things about, and I've had a lot of friends that didn't have dads in their life. And not like I was going to go away, but being gone 16 hours a day is really, it's darn hard to be a good dad and a good family member. And I give kudos to anybody who's doing that, because I know there's a lot of people out there, and I'm not shaming you. But for me, it was like, I'm not going to be that. Like, I'm going to be around for my kid. I'm going to see him roll over for the first time, which I saw last month. It was awesome. And, I'm going to hear his first words, and I'm going to be at every baseball game and soccer game and football game and whatever he's going to do. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be in the other room if my wife says, hey, honey, you've got to see this. And I'm going to be able to get up and run around the corner and go see what's up. And I can't do that if I'm in vacuum sales. I can't do that if I'm 2 hours away knocking on doors in some neighborhood. And I can't do that if I'm sitting at an office trying to run that either. And so my thing was, and you can hear me getting a little heated, but my thing was that I wanted to be there. And I truly honestly believe, and there are people that disagree with me, and that's okay, but I truly honestly believe that you can do anything you want and get anything you want. And I guess I'll say within reason, but I'm going to not even say within reason. I mean, I can't go be an astronaut right now. Okay, I get that. But pretty much 99% of the time you can do anything you want. And I wanted to be home with my family. I wanted to be able to provide for them, and I didn't want to stress about money. Those were kind of my things. Those are what I wanted. And it was from that point, it was, I think, 6 months to where I left a job where I was making high six figures a year. And I built some businesses where I could work from home. And I wasn't making high six figures when I built those businesses. I was making really just enough to get by. But I was never happier in my life to that point than I was when I left that job and I came home and I spent every day in the same living situation, the same quarters as my wife. That was when I was truly happy. And then my baby came, and it's every day since then, it's really justified that decision, and things have gone up and up and up, and I'm in the best situation I've ever been in my life. And I would never be there if I hadn't had that kind of moment where I was like, nope, I'm done. I'm not going to do this anymore.
I love that story, Tim. I wanted to jump in, but I didn't. I savoured that. I was bathing in those words, cleansing myself. So you really did, to use a phrase, love your leap. When you quit, you must have had, like all of us, I've gone through there when I quit my corporate job and I'm now doing this, but have those internal dialogues, those fear, those conversations inside your head when you're thinking, no, it's six figures. How did you overcome that? How did you become who you are now?
Well, I'll tell you two things. I'll tell you kind of what I went through, because I just gave you the rosy story, but there's a darker side. And then, I mean, that was all true. I made that sound like I was just making that up. That was all true. But in the time that I made that decision, when I found out my wife was pregnant, and we were kind of ready for the next phase, and I'd kind of internally decided that I was going to leave. And we kind of went through a lot of life changes at all at once. So she got pregnant. Our lease was coming to an end, and we had already decided long ago that we were going to be moving about an hour away, which is not a big giant move, but it involved a lot, especially with, at that point, it was going to be a mid-pregnancy wife and a whole lot of stuff in our apartment. And so we kind of were at that point, and we had a couple of deaths in the family, and a lot of things kind of happened all at once. And I had told her that I wanted to leave. I said, honey, I want to leave. And I was scared to tell her this because we were making so much money, and kind of I didn't want her to fear for our future. And so I had a lot of fear and anxiety around telling her. And when I told her, she just about jumped for joy. I mean, she was so ecstatic. She's like, honey, I have wanted you to do this for so long now. She goes, I don't care about the money. I don't care about any of this. You will figure it out. I have full faith in you that you're going to figure this out and you're going to take care of it. So that was huge. But once I got into starting the podcast and I got into these online businesses, and I grew a bunch of businesses to a whole big whopping failure, just like most people do. I think just like everybody does. But, I had all these failures, and I was scared, and I had set a date for when I was going to leave.
Do you remember the date?
And I don't remember the date off the top of my head, but it was shortly before summer. And excuse me. And so I'd made that decision, and I went through a lot. I mean, when we were doing the moving and the deaths and the baby on the way, and me leaving this job that I'd been doing for years and years that I'd been successful at, I was extremely afraid. And I am one of the most laid back, difficult to upset, difficult to embarrass people in the world. It's just extremely hard. I don't get anxious. I don't freak out. It just doesn't happen. I get really passionate, excited, but I don't swing the other way. And at this point in my life, I started to get these weird, I don't know how to describe them. They were like, it was almost like dizzy spells, where for maybe 20 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, maybe an hour, I would get a little bit of tunnel vision, and things would be a little wonky, and I would feel really weird, and I'd kind of get these cold sweats, and And I had no idea what this was. I couldn't understand what was happening to me. I thought that I thought maybe because I used to drink a ridiculous amount of soda and energy drinks when I was in the band because that was all we had. And so I thought maybe I had, screwed up and got high blood pressure or high blood sugar or something. And I went to the doctor and he said there's nothing wrong. And it turns out that I was having anxiety attacks. So all my entire life, I've never had these. I've never had even a mild case of anxiety. And I started getting these anxiety attacks, and I started to wonder, man, am I making the right choice? Like, have I screwed up? Is this going to wreck my family's future? Am I going to, is my son not going to be able to eat? I mean, are we going to have to, I started panicking, and I panicked bad. And it lasted months. I was having these anxiety attacks multiple times a day, and I probably gave myself an ulcer. I started having stomach pains and all these things. And I'm describing this for one reason only, because the person listening to this show may be feeling this right now. And I want you to know that I've felt this as well. And I want you to know that you're not alone. And so I went through all of this, and things were really, really rough. It was probably the hardest time in my life. That was right before the best time of my life. Isn't that funny? And I'll tell you how I got through it, because that was really what your question is. How do you get through it? And I got through it with the support of my wife. That's the number one answer, because at the end of the day, without her saying, honey, you can do this. Like, I believe in you. We'll figure it out. We'll get through it. Like, I don't want you going back to that. I don't care about the money. I don't care about all of that stuff. Like, I don't care. I want my husband back. I want you around. I want you in my life. I want you to be in our son's life. And it was not in a naggy way. It was in the most supportive, incredible way. Like I want to cry, because I think about how it could have easily gone the other way. And I think of how many people that I've met in my life who their wives were the other way. Their wives were like, no, you can make it work. Oh, quit being a baby. Go work and go make that money. But my wife was so supportive and loves me so much that she was like, no, you have to do this. Like, you'll make it through. We'll find a way to make it through. And her support got me to continue on the path that I was on, and got me to the point where I am now. And I keep saying the point where I am now, because again, I want that person who's listening, who's going through all this stuff, to know that, like, there's a point where you go through all of this really difficult stuff. I mean, really difficult stuff. And then all of a sudden you like get to the end of that tunnel. There's that, the light at the end of the tunnel thing, and you get there and it's like the brightest light you've ever seen. And suddenly you have all of this amazing opportunity in front of you. And people like, now I can't believe the opportunities that come my way because of that sacrifice, because of the change that I made, because of my willingness to go through that hardship so that I could get to the other end. I mean, people offer me things and ask me to do things that would blow your mind. They blow my mind every day.
I have huge resonance with literally everything you were saying there. And all the way through, again, I wanted to jump in. Oh, I can tell you about this. I can tell you about that. So you're not alone. You are absolutely not alone. The thing about the anxiety, I actually had a heart attack. Oh, I thought it was a heart attack at work. And it turned out to be stress and silly stuff. And I actually was at work doing I was a trainer, and I was doing a training course, and bang, I had this heart attack. And I carried on working, which was mad. I look back on it now and I think, what the hell was I doing? I should have stopped the course and say, excuse me, I think I'm going to die. This is a heart attack. Please call an ambulance. Right. But I didn't. Yes. I carried on doing my training course, and I knew the content so well in my head that it was just coming out of my mouth, while my brain was actually going, my God, what's the symptoms of a heart attack? Is it fuzzy arm, fuzzy leg? And I was sort of going through that. And then this is the weirdest bit. A third part of me, and it's the only time I've ever had a kind of out-of-body experience, a third part of me almost was listening to me going, this is amazing. You're thinking about your heart attack, and you're also doing that training course. Isn't this brilliant? And it was like my personality had split into three. Now, that was purely down to stress. And I look back on it now, and I think, thank God that happened to me, because I was on a journey that I couldn't see. But there was still a big part of the, I suppose, the manly side that I kind of went, why is this occurring to me? Why is this occurring? when I was younger, I worked all these long hours up in the city and I could deal with it and I could do this and I could do that. And it wasn't until I sat down, and why I'm telling this story, because there might be somebody out there as well that will resonate with this, and you feel weak and you feel like you should be stronger and you should be whatever. The reason why I suddenly had all those was it wasn't just me. I was a family man. I had responsibilities and I was going to work, trying to get my work done so that I could get home to take my son to Scouts. And then the Scouts was being overshadowed by something that my wife was doing. And I was just trying to spread myself too far. And I look back on it now and I go, yes, that was a wake-up call for me. And I've never been that way since. And now it's all about me keeping control, trying to do as good job as possible, providing value to the world, and ultimately looking after myself. Because, hey, if you don't look after yourself, you ain't got anything, have you?
Yeah, charity begins at home. That's something that kind of I heard a long time ago, that at first I was kind of like, that sounds kind of selfish. But at the end of the day, it's true. I mean, you can't help others if your situation is a mess. I mean, you know, there are people that have sacrificed themselves to make it happen, and those are some of the most incredible people in the world. But I mean, at the end of the day, I can't take care of my family if I'm, you know, sitting on the couch at the end of the day and not even being able to listen to my wife because I'm so exhausted or so miserable. Yeah, I agree, and it's not selfish because, man, just like you, I was constantly thinking about my family and how I was going to take care of them and how I was going to support them. And it's amazing that, you know, we do, David, we have really similar stories. When you mentioned the heart attack at work, I had my first anxiety attack when I was in a customer's house presenting a vacuum to them. And I didn't know that it was happening. I thought maybe I just hadn't eaten or I was feeling funny. And at one point, this was so odd, I didn't even realize I had stopped talking. I was sitting in front of the customer, kneeling on their floor with, you know, like a presentation book in front of me. And I remember them going, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Why?" They're like, "You haven't said a word for like 60 seconds. You're just looking ahead into nothing." And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry about that. I'm feeling a little funny. I'm really sorry about that." They're like, "You better drink some water." I'm like, "No, I'm okay." They're like, "No, you're like covered in sweat." And I'll never forget that day. It was the scariest thing that I've ever encountered. And I, just like you, I kept working, and I'm like, I'll just make it through it and keep working. And it kept happening. And I was in like 4 houses that day, and it kept happening in every house. And came home and told my wife, and I don't know if that story was all that valuable to anybody, but I mean, I really, you're right. There is like that macho, I've got to do this. I've got to take care of my family. I've got a responsibility to do this. And it does really kick in. And I'm sure it kicks in for women too, I'm sure. But as a man and as kind of the sole income provider for our house, I felt like I had to do it. And you don't have to do it. You can make it work, especially now. I mean, David, how many opportunities are there online or even offline? But I mean, I'm so passionate about the online thing. It's like, the opportunities are unbelievable. People will pay you to do just about anything. Want my point proven? Just to prove that people will do this, go to Fiverr, Fiverr.com, and just look around. And you'll see people that are making not a ton of money, but thousands of dollars for doing some of the dumbest crap that you've ever seen in your life. You'll see them doing some really valuable things too, but some of the dumbest crap. And I mean, I know people that have made $50,000, $60,000 on Fiverr, getting paid $5 to do some task.
Well, it is incredible, Fiverr, because if I press this button here,
welcome to Join a Dance.
Fiverr, that came straight from Fiverr, and that cost me £3.62 or something. And it was an intro that I thought I just have done because you do incredible intros to your podcasts, and that they're works of art. But I deliberately went away from everything that I've been hearing because a lot of them were a hybrid between radio shows and podcasts. And so I thought to myself, well, I'm going to go with something because the mantra of sort of join up dots is that we don't know the journey, but there is a journey, and we're all on that, and we're going to make stumbles, we're going to make falls. And I wanted people to hear the very first episode of the podcast have me not sounding particularly good, having a theme tune which they could go out and get very cheaply, and I wanted them to hear it as a kind of realised first start, and then move along, you get to episode 50, 51, 100, and they can see that they've joined up dots with me, and that was the whole theory on that. But I love those intros now, and I keep on getting people saying, "Oh, you're ruining my life." All I'm doing at work is singing "Welcome to Join Up Dots." So I don't think I want to change them, although who knows? Who knows in the future, because that's what Join Up Dots is, making decisions. And while we're talking about Join Up Dots, the thing that I want to emphasise at the time is that the whole theme of the show is based around Steve Jobs' iconic speech. And it would be wrong if I don't play at the moment, because if anyone really highlights the words that this chap said back in 2005, I think it's Mr. Tim Paige. So I'm going to play this, and then I'm just going to ask what your feelings are about the words of Steve Jobs.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever, because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and that will make all the difference.
It's made all the difference to you, hasn't it, Tim? That trust, that belief, that support from your wife.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. I mean, I think that we all think from time to time, if I knew then what I know now, I would have done things differently. But at the end of the day, if we did things differently, we wouldn't have gotten to the point that we're at now. Right? I mean, if I had never, who knows? Who knows if I had never developed those incredible sales skills that I learned from selling vacuums door to door? I mean, tell me that's not a difficult sell. A stranger walking down the street, knocking on a door, asking them to let you, or asking the person to let them into their home, and then asking them to pay $3,000 for a vacuum. Now that's a hard sell. And so if you can learn to do that well, you can sell anything. I mean, if you can sell that, you can sell things that have high value, right? And so I always think like, God, I probably would have started an internet business 10 years ago, but I might have never developed the skills that I needed 10 years ago. I might have never developed the passion that I needed. I might have never felt the pain that I needed to go on when times get tough, because you better believe in the last year and a half, however the heck long it's been since I left, it feels like, forever. But there have been hard times. There have been really hard times. I mean, being an entrepreneur, there are times when you don't make any money. And those are hard times when you've got a family. And sometimes I think if you don't go through the pain, you'll never make it through those hard times, because you'll go, forget it. I'm going to go get a job. I'll never have to deal with this because I'll get a steady paycheck. But at the end of the day, I would take those hard months where you don't make any money and be able to be with my family over making 6 figures a year and never seeing my family. I would take that all day, any day, every day.
It's a strange thing with being an entrepreneur. I never considered myself to be an entrepreneur, but now I'm having conversations on a daily basis with people that I would go, they're an entrepreneur. It's quite obvious they are. I'm starting to sort of morph into characteristics that they had or they've got. And one of those things, and I praised this, it just came out the top of my head one day, and the chap I was speaking to, episode 9, Nick Ruiz, said, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly. You've got to develop your hustle muscle. And he was saying, just as you would go into a gym and you would work on your arms to build them up, once you start hustling and you start making connections and getting over that fear factor of that person's going to say no to me, there's not that much that you can't do in an online world. Yes, you've got to play to your passions. Yes, you've got to play to your talents. Yes, you've got to do something which, you can do every single day without smashing your head into the desk. But the options are there for you as long as you get your hustle muscle going.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. It's been part of what's allowed me and what's allowed basically every successful person I know to get to where they are. I mean, if you talk to Gary Vaynerchuk, you'll hear him say that the only reason that he's as successful as he is because of his hustle muscle. He developed the skills later, but he didn't have them in the beginning. He just learned to hustle. If you talk to Mark Cuban, probably one of my favorite entrepreneurs of all time, he'll tell you the same thing. He just hustled. He hustled his face off. The guy is always hustling. And now it's like second nature. He doesn't even think about it. He's just always working, which is great. And here's something, David, can I share something a little bit odd that might make people think a little bit weird of me?
I love odd.
Okay, let's share some odd.
Is it something physically that's odd? Can we guess?
I don't think it's anything physically.
You don't
that's
have
odd.
6 nipples or something?
No, just 2.
Okay.
Just 2, maybe 1.5. Yeah, I don't know. I've gotten in this argument with several people now because this is something I've been truly thinking about a lot over the last 6 months. And I got in a little argument with Clay Collins, who is the one of the co-founders and the CEO of Lead Pages, the company I work for. And I said to him one day, I said, it's funny, I'm being interviewed on a lot of entrepreneurial podcasts, and yes, I have my voiceover business, and what I do at Lead Pages is very entrepreneurial, but I don't know if I think I'm an entrepreneur. And I said that to him, and he was like, Tim, you are an entrepreneur. He's like, you run this aspect of this business, and you really run an aspect that you've kind of started from nothing, and you've had help from the team, but you really are an entrepreneur. And and we've had that discussion. I had this discussion with John Lee Dumas, who's obviously a good friend of mine, and a bunch of other people. And it's hard because this is really, people always try to define what an entrepreneur is. Like if you talk to the guys from Secret Entourage, they'll tell you that an entrepreneur is somebody who creates something new that is, value, and then they scale it and then they create something new or something along those lines. That's kind of their mantra. That's an entrepreneur. Like if you're a business owner, that doesn't make you an entrepreneur. And other people will tell you you're an entrepreneur if you have some kind of a side hustle, you're an entrepreneur. Or if you work hard at your job and you're constantly trying to innovate at your job, you're an entrepreneur. And I guess maybe any one of those things could be true. But for me, I know that at the end of the day, there comes a point where I'm ready to stop hustling, at a certain point in the day, and I'm ready to go and be with my family. And there's nothing at that point, save from some catastrophic emergency, that would take me away from them. And I wonder if that's really an entrepreneurial trait or not. And I know that you'll hear a lot of people, like Gary Vaynerchuk always says, it's family first and then business. And that's awesome, but I don't think there's a whole lot, and I'm going to get myself in trouble here. It would take probably a lot to get me to work 16-hour days for a few weeks to get a project done. And I would do it if I really needed to, but I wouldn't be happy about it. And I think for entrepreneurs, they typically they are happy to do it because they're doing something they're passionate about. And I'm passionate about Lead Pages, like unbelievably. If you talk to me about it for 2 seconds, I'm incredibly passionate about Lead Pages, and I'm incredibly passionate about Conversion Cast and my voiceover and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I'm just more passionate about my family. And so I don't know. This is kind of an existential question I've asked, and it's not upsetting me, but it's something I'm just curious about. Like, am I really an entrepreneur if at the end of the day, I really just want to go be with my family once work is done? I don't know.
Well, I've got a friend, I say loose friend, and it's very peculiar. I still can't quite get used to the online world where you can build up relationships and especially doing this, doing a podcast. After this chat, Tim, I will feel that I know you so well, and it's really strange. Yeah. There's just kind of a connection that you build having these deep conversations with people. But there's a chap who's doing a podcast, doing really well with it, called the Solopreneur Hour. I've mentioned him loads of times, Mr. Michael O'Neill. And he said something the other day, which I thought, that's a bit spot on. And he said, an entrepreneur is somebody who's willing to work 100 hours a week because they won't work 40 hours per week for somebody else.
Interesting.
And
Interesting.
I like that because I left my job, my corporate job, to spend more time with my family and to create a world that's my own. And at the moment, it's out of whack. I'll be absolutely honest. I haven't got the balance right at all. I am doing everything I possibly can to get this this dream that I've got, and now I'm doing it. It is a dream. It's something that I feel like I have found myself behind the mic having these conversations. But I want to get it to a point where it is. If the kids have got to play, I can just go and do it. If the kids are doing something else, I can just choose it. Not like when I used to work in the city, where you really had to cough up a lung to prove that you know, half hour off, whatever. And when he said that the other day, I thought, oh, that's where I am at the moment. Is that right? Is that an entrepreneur, or is that just a slippery slope that I'm already on?
I like it. I really do. And I think it does define an entrepreneur. And, you know, I'm being a little selfish right now, trying to figure out if it describes me or not, because yeah, if I had to make a decision right now, if it was like, all right, you can bust your tail for a whole lot of hours versus going to a traditional standard job, yeah, I would bust my butt. I definitely would. And I think the answer to that for me is that I'm willing to bust my butt for 100 hours a week on occasion to never have to work 40 hours a week for somebody else. And this is a weird thing because, you know, I think I've admitted this before. I mean, I am an employee at Lead Pages. I am an employee. So I have a job to an extent. But the thing is, it is not like a 40-hour a week, 9 to 5, punch in, punch out kind of job. I mean, I really run an aspect of that business. ConversionCast is my baby. And I've got great support from the team, but ConversionCast is my business within Lead Pages. It's a Lead Pages business. And at the end of the day, if I wasn't with Lead Pages, it's still Lead Pages. But I think you understand what I'm saying is it's very entrepreneurial. And there are weeks when I have to put in 60 or 70 hours. Because there are things that need to get done for ConversionCast, because there are webinars that need to get done. And when I'm doing them, I'm never going, God, I just wish that I could go hang out with my wife. Like, oh, it's not a thing like that. Like, I'm loving it while I'm doing it. But then when it's done, I'm happy because I'm going to go and hang out with my wife. So I guess, and, you know, we're talking a whole lot about me, and I don't know if this helps anybody. I hope it does, because I hope you're maybe going through these struggles. But yeah, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, I'm an entrepreneur, but maybe I'm just an odd one, which I'm okay with.
I think odd is good, though, isn't it? Odd is unique. Odd is being your authentic self. And I keep on talking about authentic self because I really do strongly believe now that once you find the thing that you are naturally good at, the thing that naturally puts you into a state of flow where you can just lose hours because you're doing it, you really have got the golden chance of a future you can only dream about. And the thing about Join Up Dots is that, as you'll hear me say at the end, I believe that we know what our path is. I believe that we know what our talents are, our skills are. But for some reason along the line, we forget and we go into a job just because it's on offer, and we start to build careers that ultimately we haven't got the passion for. But if you look back at the things that you loved doing when you was a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old, so many people I've spoken to, and I've asked them that question, and I'm going to ask you that question now, Tim, that are you doing pretty much what you were likely to do or finding it enjoyable when you was a younger man before the vacuum cleaner business and all that kind of business sort of took you over?
Yes and no. And I say yes and no because what I wanted to do when I was a young kid was to be a professional rocker. So, like, I wanted to tour with a band. I wanted to be playing music every day.
What do you play?
And I did that. Say that again?
What do you actually play?
I play guitar and sing.
Oh, right, okay.
And I did it for 7 years. I toured all over the country. I was in a band that I get, it's hard to describe the level of success, but I would say we were moderately successful. We played on MTV. We were constantly on tour. We made our living by touring. It wasn't a good living, but it was a living. And, you know, we played festivals and we got signed to a record deal and put out 4 different records. And we did all of that stuff. And that's what I had always wanted to do. And at the end of that 7 years, I was ready to be done with it. And so I guess the thing is, I already did what I thought I would be doing when I was young. And now I'm kind of doing a modified version of that. I'm not a rock star, but I still define my own destiny. And so I guess it's quite close. And knowing that I already accomplished what I wanted to accomplish when I was a kid makes me feel incredibly satisfied.
It is amazing, though, that as a rock star, as a John Bon Jovi or whatever you were a man on the mic with charisma, personality, which has to be presented on stage. And now, really, you're a rock star online, aren't you? You are an online rock star.
I am an online something. I'm an online guitar player trying to be a rock star.
But that's good, though, isn't it? Is that not good?
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, that's the answer that we want. And that's what I want from the show. I want that from everyone. If you are in a job that you love and you were born to be an employee, then brilliant. I really, I raise my hat to you and I wish you all the best. But if you're not, if you're just in that situation of existing because you don't know that you've got any options, the best advice that I can say to you is turn on your computer screen and start looking around. And the chap that I was talking about earlier, and he's been a huge inspiration to me, Mr. Michael O'Neill, and you don't know this, Tim, but the very first time I've ever been on a podcast was on his show, episode number 8, about 16 minutes in, when I left him a little speak pipe voicemail because I suddenly had this urge that I could do this. This is something that I think I'd be good at, and I don't know how to do this. And that was my first go at it. And I sent him this little voicemail, and he played it on live. And the buzz that I got hearing my voice, I actually sort of downloaded it onto MP3 and kept on playing it secretly so no one else could hear it. But it set me on that path. Now, I wouldn't have been able to be where I am today if I hadn't have turned on the online world, had a look around. It doesn't have to be online. You can walk down the street. You can sort of look at florists. You can look at shopkeepers. You can look at loads of different things. There's a world.
Watch Shark Tank.
Yeah, there's a world outside for you. And if you are in a situation that you don't like, then you've got options. And the main option for that is you need to take control and stop being reactive to things and become proactive.
I love it. Yeah, couldn't agree more.
That was quite profound for me. I don't normally go profound.
That was fantastic. We're done. I'm done.
I think I've listened to too many Love Your Leaps. That's the problem.
I'm going to break your heart.
It's ended, isn't it?
It's on indefinite hiatus.
Yeah. Why is that?
I don't know.
Because the two of you spark. The two of you.
John and I hate each other. No, I'm kidding. No, it's hard to say, but I think just for now, I think it needs to be on pause, and it's probably going to come back at some point. But we feel that we're putting so much into what we're already doing, and that Love Your Leap for a little while wasn't getting the attention that it really deserved, because I do think that the show has a lot of value to provide, and John and I don't usually get to wax, poetic about lives and business and emotions and stuff like that, because we're talking about, some specific things on our other shows. And so we love doing the show, but I think it just needed a break so that we could kind of refresh it eventually.
Should I tell you something?
Yeah, go.
I haven't shared this with anyone, but in front of me, I've got a picture of John Lee Dumas, who was the inspiration to do a daily show. When I started listening to him and his success he had, I thought, yes, that's what I want to do. And every day I look at this poster of John Lee Dumas and I think, I'm after you, John. I'm coming after you. I don't know how long it's going to take me, but I'm going to come after you. Only in a nice way. I'm not going to sort of go and stalk him, but... But Dave,
it would make him so happy to hear that you say that, though, because he loves that. That's all he wants to do. He's such a good guy. All he wants to do is inspire people.
Yeah, I just want to one night be in San Diego, go up to the bar and bring him back a beer and say, "Bang, I've achieved something."
Listen, in 2 months from right now, because it's June, in 2 months in Dallas, there's a podcasting conference. Do you know about this?
No, I don't.
Podcast movement. It's in Dallas. I can't tell you the date right now because I'm not good on the fly, but it's like sometime at the end of August. And John is speaking. I'm speaking. Chris Brogan is speaking. Jamie Tardy is speaking. It's an amazing event. And if you come out to that, I will introduce you to John. And I guarantee you the man will sit down and have a beer with you and talk to you.
Well, that's a challenge. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work my booty off to try to get this to a position that I can leave it, which is sort of taking all my time at the moment. And then
I called you out on your show, so you'll do that.
I will do. I will work my absolute hardest to be there. August, right? Everyone's listening to that. If you come around my house and I'm sitting here in August, then something has gone wrong.
Yeah, that's right. No, this is the thing. In sales they teach you like there's no other option. So there's no other option. You're going to go to that event, figure it out.
Unless I'm on holiday with my wife. I think I might be on holiday in Spain for 2 weeks in August. So we'll have to see. But then I could always invite John across, couldn't I?
There you go.
There we go. Just before you go, Tim, this is the very end of the show, and this is the bit that we call a sermon on the mic, and this is the bit when I send you back in time, like a Marty McFly, a bearded Marty McFly, to have a one-on-one with your younger self. And if you landed in a room with a young Tim, what age would you like to have a one-on-one with? What kind of words of wisdom would you lay on them? So this is the sermon on the mic, and when the music finishes, I'm going to go quiet, and it's over to you.
Here we go with the best bit of the show, the sermon on the mic, the sermon on the mic.
Hello, Tim. This is you when you're older. Your voice doesn't really sound like this. This is, just me being goofy. But, here's the thing. You're doing a good job. You're going to make a lot of really dumb mistakes in the future. Just know that. And that's totally okay because everybody makes mistakes. And probably right now you're thinking you're a little angry because I know at this point in your life you're a little angry about nothing, which is odd. I'm not sure what you were so mad about now. But, at this point, what you were mad about. And you're trying to figure out a bunch of stuff and trying to figure out who you are, and that's okay, and keep doing what you're doing. And I just want to tell you that, at some point in the very near future, you're actually going to be really happy, and you're going to figure out, kind of who you are, and that's always going to be morphing and changing. And just know that the reason why you're going to go through some of the hard times that you're going to go through, like what you're going to go through in about a year or so, is because you need to go through these hard times to really, relish the great times. And it's really odd, and you won't believe this now, but the hardest times in your life are the ones that usually teach you the most and prepare you the most for the future. So just know all the stuff you're going through right now and are going to be going through in the next couple of years are there to prepare you for the amazing life that you're going to have ahead of you when you are about to turn 30 like I am. Hello.
Is that all you are?
That's all. Yeah.
You're not even 30. I'm looking at a picture of you, and you look like, you look like a mature man. I could never grow a beard like that.
Actually, I just turned 30. Yeah, I just turned 30.
I just turned 44. 40.
Woohoo! That's awesome. Best years of your life.
44 years old. Anyway, I'm not going to wax lyrical about my knees aching and my back hurting and all that kind of stuff.
That's already happening for me. Come on.
And the hair that's starting to appear in places that you don't need hair. Why do you suddenly have hair coming out the top of your nose? Whoever.
I was going to say, are you talking about my beard? Because that I've been doing intentionally.
What? Where would it go? Could you actually let it go to a kind of Forrest Gump style?
I don't know where I want it to go yet. I follow a guy, beardbrand.com. I follow that guy. He's got like this glorious beard, but I don't know if I could let it get there. I'm not sure if it would look good on me or if I just look like I was going to go make duck calls or something.
I can grow a beard like a kind of prepubescent Asian girl. It's pathetic.
It's in the genes, man. My dad can grow a beard, and
it is in the genes. Mr. Tim Paige, it's been an absolute delight to have you on the show today. It really has. And you've been, so open and generous. And I feel that you've kind of touched on areas that really will send out a message to the audience. And that's what the show is all about. And as the show proceeds through, there's so many opportunities when I say to all the guests, if you've got something to share, if you've got a success in your life, or you've just in a period where you might be struggling and you feel that you can pass on more knowledge to the audience, please come back, because I believe that by joining up our dots and connecting our pasts, we really have the best opportunities to build our future. Mr. Paige, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here. This has been awesome. David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice that every successful entrepreneur practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.